Denny proposed to the RLLE board a new award to be called the Transgender Pioneer Award, to honor those who over their lifetime gave selfishly of themselves to provide information and support of trans people, those who created the community that support us now, that we enjoy, the community that we enjoy now. The Transgender Pioneer Award honors trans leaders once a year at the Fantasia Fair. It is a lifetime achievement award to those who have sacrificed their careers, their families, and their fortunes to change the world so trans people can begin to come together in safety and comfort. Without them, we would not be here. We'd be at home, hiding in our closets. We meet to honor their work and to thank them for all they have done for us and give them a little back in return for their decades of work on our behalf. It's a great honor to present the 2018 Transgender Pioneer Award. Please welcome the visionary of this award and the 2009 Transgender Pioneer Award recipient, Dallas Denny.
Tonight's recipient of the Transgender Pioneer Award is Aaron H. DeVore. He's been involved in transgender studies for more than 30 years. In fact, he figured today at lunch it's approaching 35 years. He's made great contributions in his writing, in scholarly works. He's the author of 4 books. His book, Gender Blending, was portraits and kind of verbal portraits with pictures of women who in their everyday society were often mistaken for men. His book about FTMs redefined what the medical community and the psychological community thought about FTMs by portraying them in all their diversity. Aaron is the director of the Transgender Archives at the University of Victoria in British Columbia. He is also the only transgender chair. He holds that transgender chair in research at Victoria, world's only transgender chair. He has done Legion work, and I want to give an example. Reed Erickson was an early FTM who founded the Erickson Educational Society to help transsexuals. They published booklets, they had a helpline, they did a newsletter. It was groundbreaking at the time. And Reed funded much of the early work of the medical professionals like John Money and the people who eventually would form Harry Benjamin's Association and finally WPATH. He did great work, and a lot of people didn't know that, but thanks to Aaron, people are learning more about Reed today, and I think Reed will have a much higher place and prominence in transgender history because of Aaron's work. Aaron is just a great person. Every other year at the university, there is a Moving Trans History Forward conference. They just had the 3rd, and I was snowed in at Newark and could not get a plane until the conference was over. It's a great conference, and it went from 75 participants the first year to more than 300. And all kinds of really interesting takes on transgender history, which 20 years ago kind of wasn't a thing. And suddenly we are preserving our history. The archive has wonderful holdings of materials from way back. And it's fascinating to look at some of these, the ways we define ourselves, the ways others define us, and our attempts to reach out to others like ourselves to form community, which we now have, thanks to Reed, thanks to those early pioneers, thanks to Aaron. Aaron, thank you.
Good, good, good. Beautiful. And one more. Thank you.
There's a voice out there, all I see are bright lights.
Thank you.
You don't get to keep it.
We're on the budget. I ran into the chat later this week for the donation for the Transgender Archive.
Nice.
Wonderful, thank you so much. All right, thank you, Dallas, for a wonderful introduction. That was really kind, and I thank you to Fantasia Fair and all the people who have made this space possible for this many years. It's been a long time in the making. We hold some of the records at the Transgender Archives of the early days, and I know some of the folks who have made all this happen, and I'm thrilled to be here and very honored to be receiving this. I also have to say thank you to many other people for helping me to reach this point. My wife, of course. Her name is Lynn Greenoff. She's been supporting me for 29 of those 35 years or so. A whole host of people over many years. There's a staff, there's a steering committee, there are all the people that went before me, and I am really humbled to be following after so many great people I think of as the first generation of pioneers. And some of the previous recipients are people that I call my friends, and I'm just going to mention their names because I'm so honored to share this honor with them. Virginia Prince was somebody that I knew. Marissa, I worked with. I was on the board of the IFGE from 1990 to 1994. Ari Kane, Sister Mary Elizabeth, Stephen Whittle, Allison Lang, Dallas, of course. Sandra Cole was a dear friend of mine. Yvonne Cook-Riley, Mariette Kathy Allen, Jameson Green, and Martine Rothblatt. All previous recipients, all people that I know and respect, and I'm thrilled to be joining them. So you see up on the screen a slideshow of Virginia Prince. This Pioneer Award is named after Virginia, and I know everybody knows her name, and some of you knew her personally, but I'm thinking that not everybody knew much about what Virginia did. And so I wanted to take a few minutes to show some slides and talk a little bit about Virginia, who I did know, and like those of you in the audience who knew her, probably had similar feelings, that she did a lot of fantastic work and she could be a real pain in the butt. Oh, and that's the slide that came up when I said that. I didn't time it. It was just coincidence, that one. So Virginia had qualities that I think are absolutely necessary for someone who's going to be a first-generation pioneer. And in order to be the kind of pioneer that she was, you have to have a vision. You have to have a very strong vision. And you also have to be incredibly stubborn and incredibly thick-skinned. Because when you're of that first generation of pioneers, you have to see the world, the possibilities for the world to be a different kind of place. And you have to be willing to fight for that in a world that has no idea what you're talking about and probably thinks you're crazy and resists you every step of the way. And in order to be a person who does that work, yes, you have to be very stubborn, and yes, you have to be very thick-skinned, and that's a two-sided coin, because those qualities are necessary to be a leader, and those qualities also mean that sometimes
you're stubborn and thick-skinned and don't listen to anything anyone says, who's trying to stop you, but you also sometimes don't listen to anything anyone says who's really on your side and is trying to give you some good advice. And Virginia had both of those qualities, and I think those are necessary to be that kind of leader. Now, Virginia was ahead of her time in many ways. She was a person who worked very hard to conceptually separate the ideas of sex and gender. And one of the quotes that she's known for is, sex is between your legs and gender is between your ears. And this is something that has been taken up and is used to explain to a lot of people what we are about. She also coined the terms transgenderist, transgenderism, and trans people. Now, none of those terms were used by her the way they're used today. And in fact, those of you who know her will remember that she used to be really kind of pissed off that those words got taken away from her and used in a much broader sense than she meant them. But she got them into the language. They became popular in the 1990s, and in particular, two publications made a big difference on bringing those terms out, and one of them was the Transgender Tapestry put out by the IFGE. And Yvonne Cook Riley changed the title of it to Transgender Tapestry in 1995. Before that, it was called TVTS Tapestry. Right? And so that was one way. And the other thing that happened in 1996 was Leslie Feinberg published Transgender Warriors. And those two were the two that took that word away from Virginia, but she brought it into the language. She also advocated the primacy of gender identity over types of bodies. And she said, I think I put it up on the last slide, that gender is an anachronism. And so in some ways, she was the visionary that saw non-binary coming down the pike and argued that you didn't need the body to define your gender. Now, that's kind of another one of Virginia's contradictions because, of course, her gender presentation and her ideas about gender were very binary. She would have no time for the kids today who talk about being non-binary. But the way she spoke about gender opened the door for non-binary young people today. One of the places that Virginia was, I think, dead wrong is that she said that cross-dressing would get public acceptance long before gays got public acceptance. She was wrong about that. Another place that Virginia got it wrong is that she said that nobody ever needed to have transsexual surgery. That was completely unnecessary and you shouldn't do it. So, she was a pioneer in opening the door for actually people being much more fluid about their gender at the same time as she was somebody who closed the door on some things. I liked her. Not everybody did. I respected her. I think most people respected her. I thought she was a great visionary and I'm proud to be following behind her. So a couple of days ago, I told a friend of mine that I was coming to get the Virginia Prince Pioneer Award. He's a little hard of hearing, and he said, "The Junior Prince Award?" And I thought, that's perfect. I think I'm the second generation. I'm not that first generation, I'm the second generation. Okay, I'll be a junior prince, that's great. And I think what that means for me, being the next generation, a little younger than Virginia, is that I get to have more flexibility. I don't have to be quite as stubborn and quite as bullheaded and quite as thick-skinned as she had to be and that generation of pioneers had to be. And so I devote my work to a number of different goals. And I try to support trans people to feel pride. I try to show the public how great we really are. And I try to enlist support for our needs. And one of the things I have to remind a lot of the younger people is that at best we're 1% of the population. We don't have enough votes to change the world by ourselves. We need our allies. And so a lot of my work is devoted to getting the word out, public education, but also very much in bringing pride and giving a place for pride for trans people. So in public education, I do a lot of policy work. Lately, I've been doing work with schools and a lot of work with corrections, with police, and with prisons, and policy work there. I do a lot of work with the media, do lots and lots of media work, and I've got a couple of videos I'd like to recommend to you. One of them came out in 2015. It's called Transforming Gender. Put that into your browser. And one that just came out recently called Safety in Numbers, which is about history. The first one is not, but the Safety in Number one is very relevant to tonight's discussion. Lots of public talks, teaching, and writing. Also run the conferences that Dallas mentioned. I invite you all to come. They're every 2 years. They're getting bigger and bigger, but they still have an intimate feel to them. And I try to bring together people in a safe environment, all ages. We started about 14 or 15 and go into the people in their 80s, even into the late 80s. We bring together all aspects of the community. We bring cross-dresser community, trans-masculine, trans-feminine, the non-binary, two-spirit, and we're trying to reach out to the drag community. It's international. Last conference had people from 11 countries. We have families, we have allies, we have decision makers. Very important to keep it accessible, and so we try and have lots of subsidies for those who need it. One of the things that I say at the beginning of every conference that really makes a difference in how the conference runs is I remind everybody, none of us is perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And I ask everybody to be kind, to be gentle with each other, to be generous with each other, to show respect. And I remind everybody that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should listen more than you talk. Listen and talk to people that you listen and talk with people that you don't usually talk with. So conferences are a big part of the work I do. Dallas also mentioned the Transgender Archives. This is an opportunity for people to come and put their hands on history. This is the original material that the historians write the history from. We've been out there making it, you're making it, and generations that come after us need to know how we got to where we are today. It has an activism and research focus. It's free, open to the public. We have travel grants for people who want to come do research there to make it accessible, and we also digitize some of the content. All of this work is under the auspices of the Chair in Transgender Studies, as Dallas mentioned. It is the only one in the world. It is privately funded by the Tawani Foundation, which is headed up by Colonel Jennifer Pritzker. She funded it for a 5-year period. It started January 1st, 2016. I've had just over 2.5 years to build. And those of you that were at the talk earlier today would have heard something about it. The conferences are part of it, the archives are part of it, but there's many, many more programs and scholarship programs. There's all sorts of talks that we do, and social events, and arts events, cultural events. I'm halfway through, and now my vision is to see this become permanent. It's not in doubt, it's only funded. And I want it to become permanent. I want it to carry on long after I leave it behind, because this is an essential service to the community, and it must go on. So I'm going to put my plea in, and I'm going to put my thank you in. I didn't realize there was a check coming. So my thank you to Fanfare for already making a contribution, and ask any of you who are capable to please consider helping us to continue on. And I know you want to know this. We're a 501c3. We give U.S. tax receipts. And if you act soon, Colonel Pritzker will double your donation. We'll match it. I will be here afterwards. I'll be here all day tomorrow, or just go online and push the buttons. So I'm going to keep doing this work, and you're going to keep doing your part, and together we are going to keep changing the world. So thank you very, very much for all that you do, and thank you incredibly for honoring me in this way.